Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second week of the Draft of Power. I'm Calvin, and joined here today is my second host, Leo, and we have special guest, Luke.
You want to say hi, Luke?
Hi.
That's what his voice sounds like. This is what my voice sounds like. Hello, I'm Leo.
Hi, I'm Luke.
Awesome. So yeah, you guys are not going to be seeing week one. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that out due to technical issues, but we're just going to continue on with week two here. So just going to quickly go over the goals of our show. So a couple things you can expect with this show every week. Basically what we're going to do, we'll cover the weekly updates. So if you don't have time to go and look it up in the file section, we'll go over it in the video here. We'll be discussing specific drafted teams. So this week, what you can expect, we're going to be covering Hayden's and Laurel's drafted teams. We're also going to be doing special topics every week. So this week, we're going to be focusing on the kill leaders. We are also going to be providing a game analysis on the game of the week. So just so everybody knows, your votes do matter. So whichever game gets voted in, we will cover in depth.
We're gonna strive to get a third guest on here. Luke was kind enough for every week. Luke was kind enough to volunteer for this week. In the future, the kind of plan that we have here is hopefully to get preferably the winner. If not, then at least one of the players involved in the match of the week to kind of explain their thought process on these games. And so that's kind of the ultimate goal for like the third chair segment of this show. If that doesn't pan out, then maybe we bring on a third co-host altogether. Or maybe we just get a random guest to kind of come in and shoot the shit. And we'll see how things are looking in the coming weeks when the formats start getting more cemented.
I was actually forced to do this.
That's true. Calvin was kind enough to kidnap Luke and gun to his head.
I'm locked in his basement.
Gun to his head, microphone to his lips, and here we are.
I'm locked in his basement. Someone help.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for this week's episode.
Enlightening.
So I think we can just jump right into things here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the week 2 recap for the Draft of Power.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, there's some very interesting things going on in this tournament so far. A lot of competitive matches. The most interesting to me on the surface level is just the placement of certain players.
There's definitely a lot of surprises. Not necessarily surprises if you were paying attention to week 1 standings, because people kind of came out swinging. But a lot of those, especially the surprising ones, have managed to maintain all the way through here. Like I think probably the one that's continues to shock everyone is Laurel holding firmly onto that first place spot.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure it's just Calvin's playing on Laurel's account and Laurel's playing on Calvin's account.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the secret.
That's a theory.
Because the role's kind of reversed with that, where Calvin, he's not doing bad or anything, but he's more middle of the pack, and then Laurel's like way out in first.
Yeah, not that Laurel isn't a competitive force. She definitely is, but like
100%.
Usually she has a tendency to draft really, really well, and definitely did that this time, as we'll talk about later on in the show. And
It's
then
probably her biggest consistency, actually.
absolutely is her ability to really identify what it is that she wants out of a team and go for it and get a hold of that. But the ability to do that and also stay so firmly ahead in the battling standpoint is something that, while she's been good at in the past, she's never been like dominant at predictive game or maybe individual team building game like six-man
understanding when to switch out,
things like that.
Yeah.
But has definitely made some strides for this tournament and is holding on to that first place spot for a reason.
Mm-hmm. A couple other things that I think are interesting are some of the shifts. So Hayden was also tied for first in week 1, and this week he actually dropped down due to a double loss. So he actually shares 6th place with our guest, Luke, who also has a dramatic shift in the standings, who jumped up an astounding 10 placings, went from 16th to 6th with his 2 dominant wins.
Yeah, it worked out. I
No,
can't
it's
really say anything else. Yeah, it worked out.
Obviously, there's been a few other fallings down. Myself and Ross are definitely 2 players who I would have hoped would have been doing better at this point in the tournament, but we both seem to be falling a little short of what could have been expected from us.
Well, you guys both had the misfortune of this being a bye week. So you not only were probably going to end up falling, even if you won that game, because naturally you're going to get some lower people getting 2-0s, and we're still early in the season, so 2-0 week changes things a lot. And so only having one game to be able to use to climb is kind of a big deal. And then, unfortunately, those didn't end up even being wins. So it kind of, for both of you, ended up being a bit of a double-edged sword. But your bye week's out of the way now. You got nothing but doubles for the rest of the season, and eventually it's gonna even out for sure.
What's interesting is the mirror between both of you. You guys both went 1-2, and you both have the same differential.
Yeah,
Just kind of interesting. Yeah. just the mirror of that just makes it really interesting because it puts you guys at the same plane in every single way. So it's because everybody when someone has a bye and other people don't have a bye, it kind of makes 2 groups of people that have had a bye and people that haven't. So it's interesting to see that the group of buys are so close and everything else is pretty close as well so far. So
Yeah.
there's only a couple people that have 4 O's. Or the opposite.
Yeah, only 2 4-0s, and I think there's only one 4.
There's Kelsey at 0-3 as well.
Yeah,
because she's had a bye. So
but I feel like those are kind of the most interesting spots to look at for these standings, is just people like you and Ross being a little lower than you expect, and people like Laurel going crazy high right out of the gate. And there's definitely going to be a lot more room for those upsets and surprises going out throughout the season, because there's going to be people still have a lot of their most competitive matches to look ahead to. We've had a few like kind of crazy blockbuster matches already between real like powerhouses, but there's still plenty of those left in the season.
Yeah, it's going to be more about like the middle of the tournament, about like the midway point before we actually see what things actually look like. Because right now it's kind of just, it's very muddy. Everybody's very close together. Like a 0-4 and a 4-0, it's 4 game difference. That's pretty big, but it's not that big when you really think about. Yeah, it's only a 2 week gap really. So if you're 0-4, you're not out of it or anything like that. Like nothing's decided yet, and that's what makes it so interesting so far.
We're not going to see anybody completely eliminated from playoff contention for a couple of weeks still. So nobody should be getting complacent with some of these matches. Even for some of the people that have had more of a rough start, it can be real easy to get discouraged, but we have a lot of Pokemon to look forward to still. We still have, a million weeks for you to really find your stride and get used to it. And there are definitely comebacks are definitely possible. Somebody at the bottom of the list right now could very easily find their stride and manage to get into playoff contention for the end of the season.
Yeah, as long as you learn from it and don't get discouraged, that's the important thing, because it doesn't really matter. Like you have to get I think the playoffs is going to be top 8, right?
Yes.
So that's a pretty big, that's half of the people. Yeah. So just aim, if you're already doing bad and you're feeling a little bad about it, just aim for 8th. Like that's not that hard of a goal, honestly. That's not even dreaming or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple things I would suggest to some of the players who are struggling: utilize your trades.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest
important tip. A common theme with players who struggle, they don't utilize their trades. A second tip would be to, accept help. A lot of times I'm free and I'll post in the Discord group or even on the Facebook group that I'm doing team building, that's not really me doing team building. That's me just sitting, waiting for people to ask me questions and such, which I'm more than willing to help run through your team, help you create a game plan, make some cool little text with your team, give you advice for trades. And I'm not the only person who's willing to do that. There's so many people in our group that are open, easy to approach, and very knowledgeable in the game. And I think just asking for the help, it's there.
Go to Calvin if you want the hardcore team building help. Come to me if you want my sweet spreadsheets.
Google's a helpful thing to just do right away, but it's a lot more digestible to actually talk to someone.
Yeah,
you can only ask certain questions to Google.
The resources for team building on the internet, as far as Pokemon goes, are a lot more limited than you would expect, and usually they're pretty generation specific. If you're looking at YouTube stuff, like I know I've seen, because we have such a weird draft format going on here with mixed tiers and specific bans for this particular tournament, that you're not going to be able to find a team building guide that is generic enough to help you out with those, parameters. That
because a lot of it is when if you were to type in like how to use Landorus into the thing, it's only going to really tell you how to play him in OU, because that's what Landorus is.
Yeah.
So it's not very helpful. Like it will only tell you what Landorus struggles with and what he's really strong against in his tier in those matchups. And this is just such a bigger format. People understand what they need to bring. Like when I see a Landorus, when I'm playing against it, I'm probably going to put Hidden Power Ice on someone just so that I can actually kill it. And that's just something that you need to be aware of and really think about the entire game in like a very open sense. And that's probably the biggest difference between this and tiering.
You're not always going to be in a position where you can find the kind of curveballs and the kind of creative sets in your available roster to be able to win a game every single week with some crazy, dazzling set that no one's seen before. But it's such an important... That being said, the curveballs and the creativity of team building is such an important tool to take advantage of in this kind of format. Like finding some really specific scenario that might be hard to set up or might be a little bit easier to set up, but when you get in this particular position that you would normally kind of think on paper that you would lose, those are the kind of situations that really open you up to potential to surprise someone. Like
that's the big swings.
Putting some surprise choice scarf on something that you wouldn't expect it on to beat some really specific speed tier. Like I did against Ross, even though it lost my game. But that's just an example of something that you can do. And that's why it's so difficult to find guides online for this particular kind of team building. So I can't recommend enough to reach out to someone like me, reach out to someone like Calvin, and ask for some help with finding little niche uses of Pokemon that you might not have expected to have at your disposal. Because those are the kind of things that are going to win you really specific games. You're not going to find some crazy end-all be-all set that no one's heard of before that's going to go on to sweep you the tournament for your next 20 games. But you might be able to find something weird and specific enough to get you through this week.
There's that one item that turns your Pokemon into Mega Rayquaza. I recommend that item.
That's a good one.
All right, well, it was nice having Luke on the show. All right, awesome. Well, moving on. I think we'd all like to talk a little bit about the kill leaders in this tournament so far. There hasn't been too many games to gauge fully about the kill leaders.
Even still,
there's definitely some trends. Yeah, which is very cool. So moving our attention down to the bottom here. At a first glance, wow, 3 fairies dominating the top 3 spots.
It's almost like fairies a little overpowered. It's almost like fairy Pokemon are dominant and tend to be high tier. Who saw that coming?
Exactly.
God.
And
even crazier than that is you have Tapu Lele and Tapu Lele Light in the form of Mega Gardevoir over here taking first and second seeds because Psychic Fairy is so strong of a typing. It's so good.
Yeah, especially in draft format where
Oh,
you
yeah.
can prep for the specific counters to you so much easier. Yeah, these Pokemon are really going to dominate.
Yeah, you're gonna see. There's still a lot of room for someone to come up and shock you, and 6-0s will really mess with the kill leaders. But
I think Nihiligo is like my Nihiligo is like right off the board, like just behind the Feraligatr, I think so.
I could see that.
And I'm sure there's a bunch of other Pokemon that are like just right there, right behind Sean's Feraligatr and the Mega Beedrill. So it's probably
For
gonna
sure.
look completely different in like 2 weeks or so.
For example, I have the official list here. Mega Lopunny's trailing behind with 5. We've got Heatran, who's also trailing with 5. We have Ray Nucleus, because he got that 6-0. he's still around. Williams Mega Metachan he just didn't quite have enough. He's at 6. He almost made the board.
So has Reuniclus gotten a kill since that game?
No,
That's funny.
he was only hasn't been brought until week 3 here.
True.
Tapu Koko's with 5. Mega Latias has 5. We've got, Melodic's got 4. Beedrill's got
Melodic.
Melodic with 4 is.
Let's talk about Melodic here for a second.
Yeah, that's weird. Very defensive Pokemon nabbing up some kills.
Yeah.
Just gotta compare the amount of turns that it takes to get the kills from these Pokemon. And even though Tapu Lele's got 9 kills to Melodic's 4, I bet Melodic has spent more turns killing than Tapu Lele has.
Yeah, when you press Scald, recover, Scald.
Excuse me, when you press Toxic, Scald, recover, Scald.
Little Ice Beam in there to surprise some grass types.
Yeah, true.
And yeah, Luke, your Nihilego is at 7 kills, but 2 deaths, which is
yeah. There you go. Yeah, I knew it was something like that close. I was about to say I feel like he's at 7 kills, but has more deaths. That's interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just shows how like the equilibrium of this can change very heavily. Just even in later weeks when one Pokemon is like, let's say Tapu Lele is at 15 kills and the next guy's at 10, and someone that isn't even on the board can take first just away from it like that because it got 2 sweeps off or something like that. Like a team that really heavily utilizes one Pokemon, like a team that's like centered around one Pokemon, can really shake up the kill leader very, very quickly.
It'll be interesting to see what these kill leader numbers look like at the end of the season. But if you're looking at it right now, boy howdy, does this look like power creep? 4 Gen 6+ Mons, and then 1 for Alligator. 3 of which are megas. So I mean, later generations like to pound on the power. I'm sure Gen 8 will have a lot of really annoying surprises for us.
Bunch of bullies.
Utilize your steel types a bit better, people.
I can't.
4 of these guys get walled by steels.
I took them all. They're all mine.
The collector.
All right. Well, I think that seems like a pretty. Is there any particular Pokemon you want to talk about from these kill leaders, or do you want to move on? I know Luke said that he was kind of interested in talking about the Mega Altaria before we hit the record button. Is that still something you feel like talking about, or did you just want to talk kill leaders in general?
Yeah, I think Mega Altaria is a very interesting Pokemon just from like what it really offers in a game. The fear that Pokemon brings. Like I remember talking to Kelsey before her game, and she was like having like almost a panic attack about Mega Altaria. Just the Pokemon's typing makes it very hard to play against, as
Absolutely.
like just like against anybody's team. And the fact that it can, what I think it uses Dragon Dance. Yeah, it's Dragon Dance. I don't remember if it was Swords or Dragon.
It can do a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Mega Altaria is a really good like jack of all trades kind of Pokemon, I feel like.
Yeah. makes it very hard and interesting to play against. And just the fact that it also like something that like looking at the Pokemon that you don't really pay attention to is the fact that it has a type change. So when it goes
Yes.
from into its Mega, it has a type change,
A
and that can
dramatic
be
one. A really dramatic
yeah
one.
yeah. When you go from having flying immune, ground immune, to not having ground immune, that can be very interesting if she were to just switch it in and then switch it out. That can be very devastating just to make you think, because now she has to switch in later into a ground Pokemon or something like that, and you'll have to switch it out. It can be very hard to play against.
Yeah,
And
the ground immunity and losing the ground immunity in exchange for not having a stealth rock weakness, though. It just there's switching in is definitely like a real strength of that really dramatic type change, because being a fairy dragon and going from a flying dragon to a fairy dragon gives you a lot of room to set up, because you have the option to either stay unmegad or go megad, and that'll be the determining factor of what your type is the next turn. And that gives a Pokemon like Mega Altaria a lot of room to Dragon Dance, because somebody expected them not to Mega Evolve that turn, so they opted not to like Draco Meteor or something like that. And all of a sudden, your Flash Cannon isn't hitting hard because they didn't hit the Mega button, and now they're +1, and next turn they're gonna switch and murder you with their +1 Mega Altaria.
That's what's really cool. I really like the typing, like Dragon Fairy
It's such a good typing.
It's such a cool typing too, because especially when it goes from Dragon Flying, because you go from having ground immunity to having dragon immunity, and that's such a cool concept for me, because now you can, if now not everybody has a dragon types are a little bit more sparse, but it can do a lot against that if it has a dragon move, or even just the fact that Mega Altaria also gets recovery on top of this, like, really just bulky damage and just a bulky Pokemon overall. I think that's the reason why it's going to be in the kill leaders list for a bunch of weeks, if not just stay there forever.
I would, if of all the Pokemon that I think have the chance to stay here the most, I think Tapu Lele and Mega Altaria are probably going to be topping the charts of these kill leaderboards going forward.
I agree with that, yeah. Yeah, that should be
awesome.
it. I think we're good,
Cool.
Yeah.
We want to move on to some team analysis?
Yeah, well, that was a good little discussion we had about the kill leaders and Mega Altaria in specific. I think we're going to
jump into Laurel first.
Yeah, we can start out with Laurel's team analysis. So how we're going to do this is each person is going to analyze the team and just rate it out of 5 stars. So switching over to her team here. Since Luke had so much to say about Laurel, why don't you start?
I think Laurel's team is absolute garbage. Worst team in the... No, I'm just kidding.
Gee, I didn't expect that joke.
Shut up. I don't need this. I will leave.
Like,
I don't need to
helping
be here.
you. All right, go
Just
ahead.
because I'm locked in Calvin's basement doesn't mean I need to be here. So something that's very interesting about Laurel in all the tournaments is that she kind of as a person, she's very organized, and she very much likes writing stuff down. So it's interesting that her strongest point, it makes complete sense, is her drafting, and that's very true when you look at her team, because I just think it's probably the most well-rounded draft in the tournament from what I can see. And I'm not exactly the greatest at analyzing Pokemon. I'm not the best in the tournament or anything like that. Where Leo was saying, ask people for help. Yeah, don't ask me, because I'll either confuse you or ask you for help. Just don't even bother messaging me. I'm gonna ruin you.
I'm going to ruin you.
But in all seriousness, I really like her draft just because I think Mega Heatran, I say Mega Heatran because it might as well
Straight
be.
to Ubers, Mega Heatran.
I think it's above Ubers. But anyway, the Heatran, I really like the pick itself, but then also the Z Crystal on it. Bloom Doom, the Grassium Z is just such a. It's so hard to play against that because of the I'm just gonna switch in my my Swampert to wall off the Heatran and then it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that really sucks. It's very hard to play against. Heatran also I've seen Groundium Z too. It's kind of funny. What is it? Steelium Z I think as well. It's actually got a pretty versatile Z pool from what you actually see played on like OU. People don't really like. I only really ever see Grassium Z, but there's other moves that Heatran can do with the Sea Crystal, and it's just all around like just a really strong Pokemon. It gets rocks, it gets tons of damage. This is a great Pokemon. And then we've already talked about Mega Altaria, and then just looking down the entire team, it's got great. It's got rockers, it's got wall breakers, it's got type diversity, great walls like Mamoswine is a great wall. Araquanid. Araquanid's hard to play around too, just because of the webs and just the raw damage that it brings can be very challenging. It like when I saw her team and when we were doing the draft, she was just hitting bangers the whole time. And what I mean by that is that she just seemed to get high value in every single tier pool. Like I think Jellicent is an incredibly strong NU pick, and that just sounds very weird to focus on an NU Pokemon like that, but it looks like one of the highest value picks that you can pick in NU. Araquanid, one of the highest RU picks in my opinion. UU is just value city for this tournament. I think everybody's realized that. But Mamoswine, Great Wall, Mega Altaria, just Jesus Christ. Fantastic Pokemon. Like all around her team is really fantastic. And I think the only thing that slows her down is the way that she actually plays it. And so far this tournament, she's done a great job at that part. So like for me, I give the team like a solid like I hate giving 5 stars on things, but I would say like 4.5, just because it's not perfect. There's probably a couple things that she would really love to have gotten. I know that as a person, she loves Chandelure, and she probably had a team completely centered around that Pokemon because she loves it so much. So there's probably things like I'm not exactly like the greatest at seeing what she's missing or anything like that, but I'm sure there's stuff. If she was here, she would say, "Oh yeah, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that, or something else went differently." But yeah, I think it's a solid, really good team. And the only reason why I'm not giving it a 5 star is because I just don't want to. That's that's basically it. I'm not gonna say anybody's team is 5 stars except for maybe myself. No, just kidding. I hate my team. But...
All right, that was a good analysis from Luke. Leo, what would you say about Laurel's team?
So I'm just gonna get the rating out of the way. I actually agree with Luke's 4.5 star rating. The one thing that I think keeps Laurel's team from being perfect is having a really high speed tier to abuse. Her fastest Pokemon she has at her disposal is Cobalion with a base 108, which is respectable, but when the rest of your team is under base 100, and we have a couple of people in this draft league that have literally half their team at base 100 or higher, it can be a little bit difficult to... is your team really base 100 or higher at 5 months?
It's like, I think 5 Pokemon are base 100 higher, yeah.
Because you have like 3 or 4 that are at 115, I know.
Nihilego, Starmie, Raikou, Sneasel. I think that's it.
But that's, I think, something that makes Laurel's team a little bit more difficult to use, and it makes the Araquanid a real glue pick that she needs close to 100% of the time, just because webs are a really big deal for her team.
Yeah, she almost has to bring it every time, yeah.
Close to it. And I think that is something of an issue, but aside from that, you can't find too many holes in this team. The Heatran is just the perfect choice for a Z user. We've had some people with some really questionable Z crystal choices. Laurel is definitely not one of them. Heatran is a really flexible, really versatile Z crystal user. Can hold a lot of different options. Like Luke said, the classic Bloom Doom set that's been used to counter the Gastrodons that have crept in and out of OU. The Fire Z, Steel Z, Ground Z. Does he get Stone Edge?
Yeah,
I believe so.
So Continental Crush as well is not uncommon even for somebody like a Heatran that wants to run a minus attack nature most of the time. A Continental Crush is going to hurt a lot of mons, so it's still an option. And then as far as the UU picks go, I don't think that there's a person in this tournament with a better pool of UU Pokemon than Laurel. I am struggling to think of somebody that I think has a scarier UU pool than Laurel does. Cobalion, Altaria, and Mamoswine are all just like ridiculously good picks from the tier, especially the Mamoswine that goes back and forth all the time between UU and OU. Sometimes for more legitimate reasons than others, like when Pokeaim did that whole Mamoswine to the top thing and got him popular enough to be OU, even though he was UU material at the time. I know a lot of people hated that.
Shakes things up.
Yeah, it does. It shakes things up. Aside from that, the only other major thing that I notice about her team, and it's actually something that I think makes the Mega Altaria even better, is that Mega Altaria is a good switch hitting Pokemon. It can be a special attacker or it can be a physical attacker, though its setup moves for special attacking are limited compared to physical attack, so the physical ends up being more popular, which is good for her team because if it wasn't for that switch hitting capability, she would be pretty specially oriented with just Scrafty, Mamoswine, and Cobalion. But having the Altaria in there as a viable physical attacks user as well makes her offenses pretty well rounded, which is definitely a good thing to have for like a slower team like she has, where you can't just like kind of brute force your way. She has a lot of options in game. And that's something that I think makes her team just one of the most valuable in this whole draft league, and why I think that she very well may have the best team in the league at the moment. Maybe someone has this like crazy wonder trade in their back pocket that I'm not realizing that'll shoot them up towards the top. But I think as it stands at the moment, you're gonna have a hard time arguing that anybody besides Laurel has the best team in the league. And 4.5 stars, like I said at the beginning.
Okay. Wow. She's doing so good so far. So let's see. I
Drop
think
it
Laurel
on
has
the
a really. Yeah, I'm dropping a 1-star here. No, I think Laurel has a very good team. Unlike a few of the other sticky web teams that have been played in the past and future, I think she just has the best abusers of a sticky web team and one of the best setters. Like Araquanid is so bulky, it's really like an offensive threat on top of also being a bulky Pokemon. So
It
you're
protects with
constantly
webs.
yeah, like you're constantly double thinking certain things. Like, okay, is he getting webs up or is he just gonna one shot my lead? So that puts you in tough positions there. And then the Pokemon that are in the back that take advantage of the sticky web are really good and hard to switch into. Like we've already talked about, Heatran's really difficult to switch into with um, the Z move, and he just has that immediate power, and that's a common thing. She has a lot of immediate power with his team. Same with Mamoswine. Mamoswine with a Life Orb doesn't need to get a Swords Dance up. He just has one of the best type combinations to hit neutrally against everything, or even super effectively. Cobalion is also a potential for late game Swords Dance, or as she's been using it as a choice scarfer. So that's also good.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice.
I think that's the speed to your weakness, so that's making her do that.
Yeah,
That's her fastest Pokemon, so putting a scarf on it is probably the smartest thing for her team to do.
Yeah, which kind of comes to my problem with her team. There's definitely teams in this league that she is really suffers against. So what I mean by that are bulkier teams and teams that have offensive capabilities that are immune to sticky web. So a good team to bring this up would be Sean's team. Sean has a lot of bulk, and some of his offensive things, such as Minor and Rotom, do not care about Sticky Web, and consequently, they can completely crush a team like Laurel's. Electric weakness is definitely a problem with her team, and you might be saying, "Well, she's got the Mamoswine," but that's such a unfortunate situation to be put in, where you're making your Mamoswine bulky and less offensive when that's the real draw of having a Mamoswine. So I don't like that already. Um, Pokemon like Altaria, you might be like, well, once it's evolved, it's a resist, but most electric moves are pivoting. So it's pivoting on you and it's bringing in a Pokemon on your Altaria before it is set up, which you do not want. You want your Altaria to already have been set up before the switching comes in. So she does have some problems. Like I said, doesn't have much setup. And the ones that she does have, like Cresselia or Kabalion, they're okay, but yes, speed's definitely a problem. So, but one other thing I would bring up that I'm not a fan of is her removal.
It's
So, yeah, her removal options. She does have defog on Sigilyph and Altaria, but obviously on a Sticky Web team, and hers that's so centrally made around one. I think that's sorry, that's kind of difficult to be forced to have a defogger. I think she should have put a priority on getting a rapid spinner instead of a defogger. But you can't have a perfect team in this league. Even with hers, I would argue she probably has one of the best, top 2 or 3 for me at least. And I feel comfortable. I don't like doing the half stars thing, so I'll just give her a 4-star.
That's fair. Do we have any kind of potential trades in mind that you think could bump up Laurel's team to get that last star? Anybody?
I think she could probably just drop one of her NU picks for a rapid spinner.
Yeah,
something like that. I mean, that seems to be her. Like, I really like the Jellicent. I wouldn't get rid of the Jellicent, but the Sigilyph or the Scrafty potentially.
The Scrafty would be the one that I would probably want to go get rid of the most. The Sigilyph is interesting because it's gimmicky, but it's got a really effective gimmick that can be hard to get around if you don't have like a plan in mind specifically. And just one Cosmic Guard, or whatever that move is called, is
Cosmic Power.
Cosmic Power is enough to get the momentum going, and pretty easily and pretty quickly can turn into something that is difficult to impossible to stop. Which is why I would value having the Sigilyph around. The other reason why I think the Scrafty is the one to get rid of is just because it is a physical attacker, which is something that Laurel really values, because again, she's got a lot of special focus here from a lot of her team, especially considering her Z mover is a special attacker for the most part. And it's slow enough that even at -1 from sticky webs, a lot of the faster threats, and most importantly, the faster fairy types, are still going to be able to outspeed it, even if they're at -1 after a sticky web. And so that's why I would personally say the Scrafty is of the least amount of value if she's looking for something to trade for like a spinner. Not that there are that many options available.
Well, I think a good fit on her team. Like I said, she has some problems with electric type Pokemon. There is a Pokemon that was just recently traded away that has Rapid Spin and is immune to electric. I think potentially a Sandslash would
No one
be
takes sense.
a potential trade for her team. That would give her some good another ground type, but with maybe a little bit more defensive utility instead. So, but just some things to think about. She doesn't have too much she wants to trade away, honestly.
Exactly. So. These are only minor suggestions to quote unquote fix a team that doesn't really need to be fixed.
Fix what?
Exactly.
It's
Cool.
like what's cool about the NU picks in this tournament is that The NU pool isn't like exactly like the biggest like tier or anything like that. I think it's like what, like probably like of tier size. But what's cool about it is in this tournament, it's the biggest tier because you also get the PUs.
Yeah.
And some of the PUs are actually really good. Like there's some pretty decent PUs that I would be quite scared of to play against that kind of slide under the radar there. And so it leaves her very open to finding a rapid spinner that can fit more than just the role of, does it have rapid spin? Yes, then it goes on my team. She could find some other strength with a Pokemon. She looks through the PU list as well.
Yeah, you
think.
definitely shouldn't be sleeping on lower tier picks in a tournament like this. This is where low tier picks shine. This is the only place where you're going to be able to find a low tier Pokemon that you can tailor to potentially hard counter like an OU pick. And that's not a thing that you see on the ladder. And that's something that people should value pretty highly.
The thing with a lot of the PU picks is that they're actually, like, some of them are very strong Pokemon, but they lose to like something in particular, like some like they have a big flaw. And sometimes in like these kind of tournaments you can get away with, well, that guy doesn't have something to exploit this Pokemon's flaw, and then you get fucking 6-0'd by Stoutland, and you're like, what the hell just happened to me? So it does happen where just a PU Pokemon can do a lot of work, and it's happened before. Like there's been, I think it was Jared in like maybe 2 tournaments ago where Stoutland was like on like the top of the kill leaderboard for like every week. So it's just interesting that very low tier picks can do a lot of work like that.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right, that should wrap up the Laurel talk. Do we want to move on to Hayden?
Yeah, I think we can move on to Hayden now. So
let's skip it.
So this one, we'll change up the order of who talks. So I think we could go Leo, myself, and Luke. How about that?
Okay.
Sure.
So Hayden's team is interesting to me. He's got a lot of really clear threats and things that you have to keep an eye out for. But I think that the issues that he has with his team can come to fruition against a lot of other rosters that could take advantage of some of those. Like, for instance, he is relying, I think, way too heavily on the amount of bulky waters that he has. And I know that he was trying to get rid of the Tentacruel, and that didn't end up happening by the trade deadline. I'm sure he's going to try once again to get rid of the Tentacruel. We'll see if he managed to be successful in that. But Slowbro, Alamomola, and Tentacruel, 3 bulky waters that rely on their bulk as like their main selling point. There's not much room to flex and to kind of mold the role of those Pokemon in the same way that some other, even some other tanks might be able to accomplish, being a little bit more flexible in mons like that. And Slowbro can be aggressive, don't get me wrong, in the right circumstance. Like, he's got a crazy high physical defense, which is why that calm mindset is so valuable, because you shore up that weaker special defense, make up for the lack of investment and make up for the lack of base, and become a pretty strong special attacking threat on top of that. And that's a nice trick to have in your back pocket, but not something you can really end up relying on, especially when you have 2 better bulky waters kind of already doing the job that Slowbro wants to do, just like a lot of staying power, being a nuisance with Regenerator and Slack Off, and being able to just never die and always be in the back pocket. And that's exactly what Alan Momola does. It's like the exact same role, which is, I think, a big issue. The other problem that I have with this team is his Z Crystal choice, which is going to be a common theme, I think, with all 3 of us talking about his team. Nidoqueen is a great Pokemon because of Sheer Force Life Orb. And losing that in favor of a one-time Z move that usually hits really hard, but when you compare it to Sheer Force Life Orb, the difference isn't that big. And you're trading that one off. You're trading the ability to do that over and over again with the Sheer Force Life Orb build for one slightly stronger attack. And depending on what move you're using, it might not even end up being stronger 100% of the time, because that's it's just, I think, his easily the biggest weakness of his team is not having a better Z user on available to him, because Nidoqueen isn't a good choice for that Z crystal, but I'm having a hard time picking one that I think would be better. Maybe Typhlosion. Something like Galvantula like could work in theory if it wasn't already the kind of mon that really likes holding on to like a Life Orb or a Focus Sash or maybe even a Specs. Or like an Azelf, who you would think would be a good choice for a Z crystal because it's got such a wide move pool. But he's been pretty adamant about using that as like a suicide lead. So it can be a difficult choice for what mon you want to put the Z crystal on. But even keeping all that in mind, I still think that Nidoqueen was kind of a mistake. And that's kind of the general place where I think Hayden's team ends up falling apart a bit. And there's a lot of good things to like about his team. It's one of the bulkiest teams in the league, thanks to Pokemon like Bronzong and Slowbro and Tentacruel. All those bulky waters again. They make him one of the team with like one of the highest staying powers, and let his crazier offensive Pokemon like Lopunny, who is amazing, really come to their own. And that's why I think he's been able to kind of get around these issues with his team being a little bit too homogenized, because he just kind of ends up having a Pokemon like the Slowbro stay in the back pocket because his one formula of be tanky, be bulky, have a lot of staying power, and just whittle away until Lopunny can come in to clean up is a strong enough strategy to get you far in this league. Even though I think on paper the team looks a little bit not weak, but just kind of wonky. And that's why I think he's been kind of able to get around these issues. So if I were to like overall add his team and give an overall star rating, this is an impasse that I had when we were talking about this in the Lost episode from last week, is what do I give this rating of 10 Pokemon? Because I think the final conclusion that I came to is that his one core of 6 Pokemon that he can pick, with like his Lopunny, Azelf, Galvantula, and then 2 of his 3 bulky waters, and then something else at the end there, that's strong enough field of 6 to warrant like a higher rating than the group of 10 gets. So I think my ultimate decision on this is that he has overall like maybe a 2.5 half measures. I'll say he has like a 2 out of 5 stars for his overall team, but he's able to field a team of 6 Pokemon in any given match that I feel pretty comfortable giving like a 3 or a 4-star rating to. So at the end of the day, I would say his roster of 5 is like 2 out of 5 stars, but that's not necessarily something to hold over his head and something to exploit, because he's still able to kick your ass with 6 Pokemon. It's just a matter of how many of his 10 are really all that valuable. And that's kind of my final thought on Hayden's team.
Okay. Nice and in-depth. Awesome. So makes my job a little easier. Yeah, we already discussed this before. So yeah, I'm basically going to go over just the same thing. Yeah, his water defenses it's so centralizing, it becomes easy to prep for. And that's a major problem with Hayden as a player in general. He tends to stagnate as the tournaments go on, like not like the length of the tournament. So like later in the season, Hayden usually ends up bringing the same things. So having a team where it's already so static, I feel like he's going to get too many early losses off of that, and then it's going to even hurt him later on in the later part of the season due to the easy to exploit things on his team. So yeah, the water defensive core really needs to change. It's just such a waste of all his lower tier guys. I would say all his NU picks are a complete waste, unfortunately. Typhlosion is never going to be brought to this match, I think. There's better Pokemon even in the NU tier that could have been picked up. A suggestion would be something like Delphox, who's faster and can actually hold a Z move quite well.
Yeah, I never understood the Typhlosion pick, considering that Delphox is in the same tier and just does everything that it does better and with more variety and less predictability.
Typhlosion looks cooler.
That's definitely true.
That's true. But in a competitive format, that's not.
No,
Looks-
no, it's
looks are
only about the
half
looks.
battle.
No, they're all the battle.
And then the ride on is also kind of nullified in his team because he has a Nido Queen. So why would you ever bring ride on over Nido Queen? I just feel he needs to utilize some trades to better flesh out his team. And with a better fleshed out team, you can become more unpredictable. And in a team or in a draft where you know exactly what your opponent's bringing, you know exactly how to prep for each one, having more things that you can potentially bring that can offer different value is going to be harder to prep for than a team of, well, I look at the top 6 guys, I know he's not bringing the 4 below. That's not always the best thing in my opinion. And yeah, his Z move pick with the Nido Queen, I did damage calcs the other day. It actually does less damage to have Nido Queen as your Zmon user.
Just sounds dumb.
There's literally no reason to ever have that on your Nido Queen. Literally nothing. So he needs to change that on Monday, and maybe do a lower tier trade and throw that Z move on Galvantula or something else.
Galvantula would definitely be a good pick.
Or even
yeah,
bring in a new Pokemon that you don't even have. Like that's an option.
That I think is the ideal scenario because
Yeah,
I
because he's
think-
got like you said, he's got a lot of wasted slots. So
yeah.
And obviously I harping on his team, but obviously he's got a lot of great things. Mega Lot Bunny is really difficult to deal with in a tournament like this. Its revenge killing capabilities are unparalleled.
Just off the charts.
Nido Queen. Oh, I hate going up against a Nido Queen, especially when he has capabilities of Sticky Web. That's really frustrating. And Azelf's utility and even potential offensive sets will be a good thing to change up every once in a while, as long as he understands to change it up. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really like this team.
It's not my favorite.
I'm having even in talking to him, I've voiced my opinions on it. So I feel very comfortable giving it 2 stars, but with some smart trades, I think he can easily get this team up to a strong 4-star easily. So.
Oh, I think that's definitely true because I 100% believe what I said about him being able to field a strong team of 6, and you have enough trades to extend that out to 10. I don't think he's used one yet.
nope, not yet.
Luke, you have any thoughts?
Oh yeah, so the way that I look at his team is that right off the bat, I think that it's a very strong team, but it suffers from same. It's just
It's too much
like
role overlap.
yeah, it's just too same. Like Tentacruel, Alamola, Slowbro, you guys already said it. Nido Queen, Rhydon, you already said it. Like whatever. I don't need to say this stuff, but at the same time, I look at his team and I respect it. It's very manly. I like the Lopunny. I like punching things. Nido Queen likes to punch things too. Something about Azef's or however the hell you pronounce that. It's iron will to just self-destruct. Really makes me happy as a person. Just Garvantula. I like it. Bronzong's a giant bill. I really like his team. As like what it does in a game. It likes to hit things. It likes to hit things hard. And I like it. And what I think is most important about his team is that it does field a very strong 6. It's more of a team of like really like when I look at it, it's probably like there may be 10 names there, but I really only see 7. Like I only really see like about 7 Pokemon there. And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a weak team. It means that it's unversatile, and that makes it really good against some people. Say he has a good matchup against Leo, but he has a bad matchup against Laurel. That, like, it's almost binary in the fact that he doesn't really have that many ways of looking at it. He just either he wins or he loses, and that might be the case, but I think it's also up to his play a little bit as well. And that's kind of why, like, for me, looking at his team, I want to give him, I want to give it like, I want to give it like, I think it's a good team. So I want to say, because for me, I think when I give someone a 2, that team is like weaker. But for me, I think it's actually a pretty good team. So I want to give it a 3, but I'm giving it a 3 because I think with good play, it's a good team. And it's very much based on how he plays it. Sure, I just kind of contradicted myself with it's binary. He either wins or he loses. But I say that in the fact that it's more about the matchup than how he plays it. His team is binary in the sense that it's kind of just running the 6 Pokemon every single time. Maybe one Pokemon changes. But the way that he plays it is what is not binary. It's very much about he still he dictates his own fate with it, and it's very much about how it's played. And I think that's why I give it a 3. It's a 4 or a 5 when he plays it really well, but if he wants to play it badly, it's also a 1. Like, it's very much on how he does it, and I think that's what's important with his team. But I think it can very, very much benefit from having some trades, increase that versatility, and easily, like, I think this team, looking at it without going too much into like really looking at everybody's team, his team, it looks like on the surface a team that's the very, very much a framework to a 4 or a 5. Just by making a couple trades, increasing the versatility, because that's the biggest weakness that I see on his team, is just the versatility of it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I give it a 3 out of 5. Just leave, but like with the caveat of it's up to him to make it a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, like up to him, up to his play, I should say.
I think we're all pretty much in agreement about the state of Hayden's team.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that does it for the draft analysis. So real quickly before we get into the game of the week, I just want to do a little shout out for we actually have a sponsor for our group. This is the first ever sponsor we have.
We're sponsored by Coca-Cola.
No.
Oh wait, no, sorry, my bad. Not this time, shit.
No, next time. But we actually have been sponsored by Ross and his Smite group. So Ross wasn't able to really give me the details of his group to fully tell you about what his group is all about. But I do know he runs a Discord group for Smite, and they do a lot of tournaments and such on the PlayStation 4. So depending on communication with him, I might leave a link in the description for you guys to go check it out if you might want to, hey, Smite, that's a free game to play. I don't know. There's some guys in this group that I already know. Maybe they can help me get into it. Maybe I can get into their squad. Who knows? But yeah, they sponsored us, and really happy about that. It's helping finance the Draft of Power, and they actually utilized some of Leo's talents, and Leo helped made some banners and such for them, which were really cool. Leo could even show it up on the screen here for you.
I can do that.
And, yeah, if you'd like to sponsor the show or do a shout out, just message me personally, and we can set up a little bit more fleshed out than just this little shout out. But yeah, moving on. Game of the week.
Up with the game of the week.
Yeah, week 2. The voted game was Reggie versus Manny, which are 2 titans of the CBA, Competitive Battle Arena. And they're in our group, the NACP, having a huge matchup here. Okay, so we're back here into looking at Reggie versus Manny. Pretty typical lead for both guys, I'd say.
Yeah, it's about
both
what you would
stealth
expect out of
rocks
the two
up.
of them. They both
What's
want rocks pretty bad here, so go ahead, Luke.
What's interesting, I think, about because I've already watched it, but so the way that Manny plays the game, it seems that he has a very specific setup for Reggie, whereas Reggie's running a more like just all around style of team,
Yeah,
rather
Reggie's
than
team is a
something
little more
specific.
generalized.
Yeah. Whereas like the way that Manny he brings out the Alolan and it immediately Alolan Muck and it immediately gets burned and you think, oh well, it's already done after it curses and everything like that. But he's running a rest set. It's like he knows that Melodic is just going to keep throwing Scalds because that's all it's done for the whole tournament so far. So I really like this. I'd like to think that he did that on purpose, so then it was immune to the burning. So and then
I
it's
think
also
this curse muck was a really good bring, honestly.
Super
Being
good.
able to take out that melodic is such a good thing.
mm-hmm. Even if it only kills that too. That's all it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
That was a weird switch, I feel like. Maybe Reggie was doing some calcs and knew that his Landorus wasn't going to be able to kill that to kill the muck at +2. But I feel like he would have been better off going for an earthquake shot at that point. Maybe things would have just been like a little bit low, but 25% from a Shuckaberry. Shuckaberry reduces it by half, correct? Reduces damage?
I'm pretty sure it's half.
Okay, so it would have left him with like 10 to 20%. So that probably wouldn't have been the right play, knowing that the Ice Beam is there. But this isn't a good place to be for the Melodic, and it shows that like this Muck was built to fight this Melodic. Like you can tell that was the whole point of this, and it's doing its job wonderfully right now. Because,
but to be fair for Reggie, like looking at the rest of Manny's team, like what is this melodic doing to the rest of the team? Besides maybe the Aerodactyl, I think it was fine to just get the Muck low enough to revenge kill it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know what the rest of Manny's roster looks like off the top of my head as to why you bring that melodic, but Reggie seems to have kind of a similar situation to Hayden going on, where I feel like he's taking a lot of the same Pokemon every time because he's got a lot of really good like high tier kind of powerhouse picks. So you're going to see the Landorus a lot. You're going to see the Infernape a lot. The Beedrill, I know he's done a lot of work with already, considering it was up there for the kill leaders. So Melodic is just part of that equation, I guess. This Goodra, by the way, is like my favorite part of this match. Manny uses this Goodra like phenomenally. Even like respecting that he is a necessity for the rest of the team going forward, and even though it's not a guarantee that Kyurem is going to end up being a physical attacker like it ends up being, which was an excellent choice on Reggie's part, because even a special attacking dragon has a hard time taking out a Goodra. Goodra eats hits.
And by the way, that turn 22 was very smart on Reggie's part. He definitely weighed his odds there, like switching out there and letting that Mega Gardevoir set up would have been really bad. And he kind of understood the Kyurem was useless at that point, so staying in Iron Heading was a really good play in my opinion.
Agreed.
Taking down the substitute was really big for him.
Yeah. Gardevoir is able to get behind the substitute. It would have been able to claim at least like 2 kills potentially. Yeah. Or a kill and then been able to switch out safely.
Yeah, just understanding that his Kyurem was pretty much dead and that it didn't have any more value was what got him a little bit more value out of it.
Exactly.
And then just Mega Beedrill with its ridiculous speed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's all it is. Not much to say about that.
This Cradily is a weird Pokemon on this team. it's I get that he only has so many options for rockers if you don't want to pigeonhole your Landorus in that role. But it just looks a little out of place considering how good his other mons are at their particular roles. You're only going to have so much room to take higher tier Pokemon for a match like this. But I feel like just on paper, the Cradley just has like a difficult time getting through what you're going to want it to kind of get done in this match. That substitute was a weird choice, I feel like, from Manny. Even though, spoiler alert, Manny goes on to take this game, I feel like he burned a lot of HP setting up subs that didn't matter, especially the second one. The first one, scouting out and thinking the Cradley's going to bail, might not be a bad idea, but after you know the Sludge Bomb is on there, I don't think there was a point in that second one.
Well, to be fair, it did critical hit him the second time. You set up the sub, so he actually would have been safe behind a sub.
Didn't can you go back a few turns, Luke?
Yeah.
Because I think. Oh, he had already gotten the Calm Mind up at that point. Yeah, that crit. Yeah, you're right. Never mind. I retract my statement. That crit absolutely matters for this kind of situation, because this would have been a probably free Calm Mind at that point. The second one.
Yeah. I didn't notice that either. Oh shit. Okay. Let's go back. Now I'm all confused. What the hell happened to the thing? Okay.
Very good.
Okay, sorry.
I was trying to go back to where we were. So yeah, after the Cradley goes down, revenge killed by Infernape.
This is where we get to my favorite part of this battle, is Manny's use
Landers
of his Gudra and his Cofagrigus.
Right, yeah. No, I really like the Cofagrigus in this as well.
Mummy is such a good ability, especially against a team like Reggie's where he's just filled with really strong contact attackers. Like, Beedrill can only contact hit, and Infernape is really only good at contact hit, unless it's a special ape, but at this point we already know that it's a physical ape.
Yeah.
So you know that Mummy ability is going to come in handy, because losing Blaze, which I don't think it actually happens in this game to close it off, but losing Blaze on Infernape is a big deal. It would be an even bigger deal if this Infernape had Iron Fist. I don't know why this Infernape has Blaze. It should have Iron Fist. But the adaptability, potential to lose adaptability on Mega Beedrill is such a big deal if you're trying to focus on like those last little bit of staying power that you have towards the end game here. When you only have so many health bars to work with, and you have an ability like adaptability get thrown away, it's a big deal. And if that were to have survived that Shadow Ball, then I know for a fact that Manny would be really appreciating the amount of damage that Gudra would have been taken from that Beedrill compared to what it ended up.
That Colbur Berry very much saved that Cofagrigus. Because if he still had the Beedrill at that point, I'm pretty sure the Beedrill would have been able, with Poison Jab, to kill the remainder too.
I
think that's like the big focal point of this game, though, is the berries and just the sets that Manny's running. I think he had 3 berries this game.
He had a Shuka and a Colbur. Was there a third one?
No, I guess that was it. But I mean, I think they were very, very good berries. Actually worked. I feel like a lot of people shy away from using berries just because of what the item is, right? Like, what if that situation doesn't happen? But you can tell that he very much made his team in particular for Reggie's.
Absolutely.
And that really speaks through to why he ended up coming out with the win. Just the berries, the sleep shot set on the muck. That's pretty cool set. Pretty good against a a melodic that's pretty much just trying to burn you. Just the whole game was just really well thought out by Manny. You can kind of tell how he you can tell he envisioned it a little bit on how the game would have went.
Yeah, I agree. Really, what this one comes down to is pretty masterful use of his tanks from Manny. Just using they're not necessarily walls because they don't have reliable recovery enough to be walls, but Gudra has staying power, Muck has staying power, becomes almost a wall because of the rest set that he used, and Kavagragas, they can all take hits really, really well. And when you couple that with abilities like Gooey and Mummy that reward, or I shouldn't say reward, they penalize the enemy for physically attacking you. When you have a high physical contact team like Reggie, those abilities really stack up. Like that Gooey was a big deal on the Infernape at the end there, because while I don't necessarily think that Rotom was going to get murdered by one close combat, the ability to outspeed and just know that you're going to be able to get that kill on the lower defenses of the Infernape thanks to 2 stacks of Gooey is a really big deal, and one that could have potentially been the difference between the game at the end there.
Yeah. I think what's very interesting is that Manny's team had a lot of bulk, and he was able to turn them into pretty credible threats by running things like Curse and Calm Mind. Just making it a double-edged sword, turning them into double-edged sword. Turning them into wall breakers more than just things that have bulk. And I think that it worked very well against Reggie's team.
It's something that that Manny's bulkier Pokemon are uniquely capable of doing, because you're not always going to have the luxury of a Pokemon like Kavagragas or like Gudra and Muck that are pretty capable of pretty consistently pulling that kind of thing off, because Gudra's not a tank in the traditional sense. It eats special hits like crazy, but has 0 recovery options outside of leftovers, and as a result is forced to really be brute force, to really brute force these fights. And
it's more of a bulky wall breaker.
Yeah, somewhat. Like the kind of thing that it's just about whittling and about being harder to whittle itself.
Yeah, I think it's very cool with the Alolan Muck. I very much like this set because it's not something that I've seen too much of with the Sleep Talk.
Yeah,
that's it's just very. It just like, I don't really view Alolan Muck as a versatile Pokemon or anything like that. It doesn't really have too much, but he does show off that it has a bit, and that he knows how to use it, and I think it's just very well done. Right time to pull it out, I should say.
That's kind of the end of my thoughts on this match. Calvin, do you have any thoughts?
No, I agree with what you guys all said. A team of tanks versus a team of Volt turn without the Volt.
Yeah. Just turn.
Yeah, just turn. Worked out for Manny a lot better since he was able to set up a lot more and break down what little walls Reggie does have, and easily tank hits from the remaining attackers and easily revenge kill in return. Really well played game by both. I feel like maybe Reggie could have played a bit more aggressively at some points, but honestly, this is a tougher match for his team to deal with, honestly. So,
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's gonna about wrap up the show now, though. We've gone through all the points we'd like to talk about, and I want to thank Luke for hanging out with us this time.
I didn't enjoy any of it.
Yeah, since you were forced.
God.
No, I'm just joking. No, it was fun. It was good. Never do it again, but that's fine. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'll probably do it again if I'm asked. It's pretty enjoyable.
So I'd like to extend the guest offer out to other people, though. Please feel free to leave a comment. on your own thoughts of Hayden and Laurel's team, or what you think about the standings, or if you agree with our analysis on the game, or whether you'd like to be a guest yourself. The input is going to be very important on as to where we go with this show.
Yeah, just talk to us. We're looking to get discussion from any corner that we can, because Pokemon news on the whole is a little bit dry. We're just in that time of year right now. So while we can pretty confidently fill up a short show every week with just talking about, new kill leaders, new standings, game of the week, it's always good to have some bonus topics to fall back on and make sure that everything is fresh week to week. So community interaction is going to be important, and we appreciate anything that we can get.
Cool. All right, and I think that's going to be our time to sign off. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next week.
See you next week, everybody.